Hello and welcome. This story is about Armin, a quiet, introspective 16-year-old who until now had spent his high school days buried in books and daydreams. He was a spectator, not a player, in the chaotic game of teenage life. His world was comfortable, predictable, and frankly, a little gray. But all that was about to change. It started, as these things often do, with a single, unexpected moment. A moment that would repaint his entire world in vibrant, confusing, and breathtaking colors. And it all began with a girl named Alara. Alara wasn't just another face in the crowded school corridors. She had a laugh that could cut through the dullest Monday morning lecture and a smile that seemed to hold a bit of sunlight, even on the rainiest days. Armin had noticed her before, of course. It was hard not to. But she existed in a different universe, one filled with popular friends and effortless confidence. He was content to observe from a distance, a silent admirer in the back of the classroom. Until one afternoon their universes collided. It happened in the school library, Armin's sanctuary. He was reaching for a copy of a classic novel on the top shelf when he fumbled, sending the heavy book tumbling down. He braced for the loud thud, but instead it landed softly in a pair of outstretched hands. He looked down and there she was, Alara. She looked up, the book held safely, and gave him that smile. "Careful there," she said, her voice even warmer than he'd imagined. "Wouldn't want to lose a good story." In that moment, something shifted. The library, usually a place of quiet solitude, suddenly felt charged with a new energy. Armin, normally tongue-tied and awkward, found himself stammering a thank you. She just laughed that bright laugh of hers and handed him the book. "I've read this one," she said, her finger tracing the title. "The ending is beautiful, but a little sad." They stood there for a minute talking about characters and plot twists. It was the longest conversation he'd ever had with her, and it felt both terrifying and exhilarating. From that day on, the school corridors were no longer just a path from one class to another. They became a stage for potential encounters. A simple hello from her in the hallway could make his entire day. They were assigned as partners for a history project, and suddenly, late-night study sessions became the highlight of his week. They'd sit in the library, surrounded by dusty books. But their conversations would drift from ancient civilizations to their favorite songs, their dreams for the future, and the silly things that made them laugh. Armin discovered that beneath her popular exterior, Alara was thoughtful, funny, and surprisingly nerdy about certain things, just like him. She loved old movies and had a secret talent for drawing. He found himself opening up, sharing his own passions for writing and astronomy. He showed her the constellations through his telescope one evening. And as they stood under the vast, starry sky, he felt a connection that went beyond a simple classroom friendship. The space between them felt smaller, filled with an unspoken understanding. The innocent flirtation began subtly. A playful nudge during a lecture, a shared glance across the classroom that lingered just a second too long. He'd find little doodles she'd left in the margins of their shared textbook, and he'd reply with a witty comment. Each small interaction was a spark, igniting a warmth in his chest he'd never felt before. It was a dizzying, wonderful feeling. He was falling hard and fast, and for the first time in his life, he didn't want to be saved. He wanted to see where the fall would take him. This feeling, this first love, was all-consuming. His daydreams were no longer about distant galaxies, but about her smile. His poetry, once filled with abstract thoughts, was now filled with her. He felt braver, more alive. He even started joining her and her friends for lunch sometimes, stepping out of his comfortable shell. It was a whole new world, and Alara was the sun it all revolved around. He was no longer just a spectator. He was part of the story. But as any good story knows, conflict is inevitable. The path of young love is never smooth. There was another guy, Leo, a popular athlete who had made his interest in Alara very clear. Armin would see them laughing together, and a knot of jealousy would tighten in his stomach. He was a quiet writer, a dreamer. How could he possibly compete with someone so confident and outgoing? The self-doubt that he had started to conquer came creeping back. He felt his gray, predictable world threatening to reclaim him. He saw them together at the school dance, a place he only attended because Alara had insisted he come. Seeing her slow dancing with Leo felt like a physical blow. The vibrant world she had shown him seemed to dim, the colors fading back to gray. He slipped out of the noisy gym, the cheerful music mocking his heavy heart. He walked home under the same stars he had shown her, but now they seemed cold and distant. Heartbreak was a bitter, lonely lesson, and he was learning it for the first time. The next few weeks were a blur of avoidance. He found different routes to class, kept his head down in the library, and made excuses to miss their study sessions. The silence between them was louder than any conversation they'd ever had. The school corridors once again became just hallways. The joy was gone, replaced by a hollow ache. He realized that opening yourself up to love also meant opening yourself up to pain. It was a harsh reality for a 16-year-old dreamer. Just as he was resigning himself to this new, sad reality, she found him. It was after school, by the old oak tree where he sometimes sat to write. She walked up to him, her expression serious. "Why have you been avoiding me, Armin?" she asked, her voice soft but firm. He couldn't meet her eyes. He just shrugged, staring at the grass. "It's because of Leo, isn't it?" she continued. "You saw us at the dance." He finally looked up, his own hurt and confusion written all over his face. "He's just a friend, Armin," she said, taking a step closer. "The person I wanted to dance with left before I had the chance to ask." The world seemed to stop for a moment. He searched her eyes for any hint of a lie, but all he saw was sincerity. "I miss talking to you," she whispered. "I miss our library talks and looking at the stars. The world feels a little less bright without you in it." In that moment, all the pain and jealousy washed away, replaced by a wave of overwhelming relief and hope. He had been so caught up in his own insecurities that he hadn't seen what was right in front of him. He had learned about heartbreak, but now he was learning about resilience. He learned that communication was key and that assumptions could be the cruelest of villains. He stood up, and for the first time, he didn't feel like the shy boy in the back of the class. He felt like someone worthy of her attention, of her affection. He reached out and took her hand. It was a bold move for him, but it felt right. "I miss you too," he said, his voice steady. A smile returned to her face, the one that held all the sunlight. They didn't need to say anything else. They stood there for a long time, hand in hand, under the old oak tree, their shared world bright and vibrant once more. The journey had been unexpected, filled with dizzying highs and crushing lows, but it had led them here. Years later, long after high school corridors were a distant memory, Armin would still think about that time. He would remember the thrill of a shared glance, the warmth of her hand in his, and the courage it took to face his first heartbreak. That sweet, clumsy, all-consuming first love taught him more than any textbook ever could. It taught him about vulnerability, about resilience, and about the beautiful, terrifying, wonderful journey of opening your heart to another person. And the memory of a classmate's smile, a smile that had changed everything, would linger with him forever, a cherished chapter in the story of his life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.